Today, we're diving into a story that is just intense. We're about to witness a showdown, a final, chilling warning given to a community that just refuses to learn from its own devastating past. This is the story of Jeremiah 44. It's a raw confrontation between a prophet who's at the end of his rope and a people who are stubbornly set in their ways. And this really is the question at the heart of it all. It's a question that's as relevant today as it was thousands of years ago. I mean, just imagine it. You've lived through an absolute catastrophe, and then you watch your friends, your neighbors, your community start making the exact same mistakes that caused it all. What do you even do? Well, that's the impossible situation the prophet Jeremiah finds himself in. So, our story kicks off with this final warning. Jeremiah goes to the Judean refugees, people who've run away to Egypt, and he delivers this one last, incredibly urgent message from God. Let's set the scene here. We're in Egypt, around 586 BC. Jerusalem has fallen. It's in ruins. The heart of the nation has been ripped out. A small group of survivors, a remnant, has managed to escape to Egypt. They're hoping for safety, a chance to start over. But as we're about to see, they didn't leave all their problems behind. Now, at the very center of this whole conflict is a deity known as the Queen of Heaven. This was a really popular goddess, probably a version of Ishtar or Astarte. And from Jeremiah's perspective, worshiping her, burning incense, making offerings, this was the problem. It was the ultimate act of betrayal that led to their nation's destruction in the first place. So when Jeremiah confronts them, he doesn't start with some abstract theological argument. Nope. He starts with something deeply personal, something they all share, the traumatic memory of what they all just lived through. The message God gives through Jeremiah is brutally direct. He's basically saying, you were there. You saw the ruins of Jerusalem with your own eyes. He's making it crystal clear that they are first-hand witnesses. There's absolutely no room for them to claim they didn't know. And right here, this is the core of the issue. Even though they had front-row seats to the consequences of their actions, the minute they get to their new home in Egypt, they start doing the exact same thing all over again. It's a textbook case of what you might call spiritual amnesia, where you just ignore the painful evidence of the past so you can do what you want in the present. And God reminds them this wasn't their first warning, not by a long shot. He says he sent prophet after prophet pleading with them to stop. That phrase, rising early and sending them, it paints a picture of this patient, urgent, repeated effort, an effort that they just deliberately ignored time and time again. Okay, this is where the story takes a wild turn. Because the people don't just, quietly ignore Jeremiah. Oh no, they stand up and publicly, openly defy him. I mean, their response is just audacious. It's pretty much a declaration of independence from God. They're saying, we're not listening to you, we're going to do what we said we would do, and we will keep worshiping the Queen of Heaven. It's an incredible moment of defiance. And here you can see the standoff laid bare. It's just so stark. On one side, you have God's passionate plea, please don't do this thing I hate. And on the other, the people's stubborn vow, we will absolutely do it. There's no compromise here. It's a direct clash of wills. So how do they possibly justify this? Well, they do something remarkably human. They rewrite history. They invent this completely false narrative where everything was great only when they were worshiping idols. They claim that ever since they stopped, it's been nothing but trouble. They're literally blaming obedience for their suffering and crediting disobedience for their good old days. Well, when you're faced with that kind of unrepentant rebellion, the conversation changes. The time for warnings is officially over, and the message now shifts to one of final, inescapable judgment. The language here is just so powerful. That phrase, I will set my face against you, signals a complete 180. Instead of watching over them for their good, God is now actively opposing them. Egypt is not going to be the safe haven they thought it was. And the consequences are going to be tragically familiar. The very same disasters they fled from back in Jerusalem, war, starvation, disease, are all prophesied to find them right there in Egypt. The message couldn't be clearer. You cannot outrun the consequences of your choices. But, even in the middle of this devastating verdict, there is one tiny, tiny sliver of mercy. The prophecy says that a small number, just a handful of people, will manage to escape the destruction and actually make it back home, and they will serve as living proof that God's word came true. Now, to prove that this isn't just an empty threat, God gives them a tangible sign they can all watch for, a specific political event that's going to happen in their lifetime, a sign to validate the entire prophecy. So Jeremiah predicts that Pharaoh Hopra, the king of Egypt, the very man they're counting on for protection, will be overthrown and handed over to his enemies. And what's so fascinating is that secular history records this exact thing happening. Around 570 BC, Hopra was taken down in a civil war and later killed, fulfilling the prophecy exactly as Jeremiah had said. And what happened to that community of refugees in Egypt? Well, just as the prophecy warned, they were consumed. They were cut off. Their identity as a people was severed. And for the most part, they just disappeared from the pages of history, a silent, tragic testament to a warning that was not heeded. And this brings us right back to our opening question. You see, the story of Jeremiah 44 isn't just about ancient history. It's a timeless lesson in how we respond to warnings. It forces us to ask ourselves, when the past shows us the clear consequences of certain actions, do we listen to the evidence, or do we just double down on the story we'd rather believe?